I'm going to put away this greatsword, and I'm going to get out a lance!
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Hello, my fellow hunters, and no, fear not, I've not lost my mind. The greatsword will always remain my favorite weapon, favorite weapon. But my other favorite best kind of thing, as you well know, is the endless pursuit of immortality. And beyond that, every application of the Never Die engine. So if I take you back in time on a little trip to Iceborne, I want to regale you with a little project that I enacted there. See, one of my dreams was always to be able to kill monsters, and actually threatening monsters, like elder dragons back then, while AFK, or at the very least with essentially minimal input. And I achieved that in a couple of ways a few times. Most well known was the kind of Pokemon Palico setup where you just get your Palico to kill the monster and you just manage it. Sadly, that was taken away in Wilds because the Palico is just kind of a pathetic, weak baby kitten. Though, of course, he is broken in support, he's not exactly packing a load of firework, explosive, gadget fuel damage anymore. But that ended up still being a little bit active, you know. It was an actual method of hunting. You occasionally had to slap the monster to keep the Palico attacking, you had to buff them, keep them healthy, you had to use their abilities on cooldown. It was fun, but it wasn't really like as AFK as I would like it. But then came immortality, and then came a sort of hybrid approach, where I eventually ended up using heavy bowgun and the power of wedging myself in a corner to auto-guard every attack that was coming my way while the Palico slowly chipped down the monster. This was all well and good until the disaster struck that was the fact that you can't actually have a Palico deal the killing blow, so it can only ever put the monster to 1 health, and then you have to finish it off. But it was fun, and it was at least enough of a success to me, and I was very satisfied with it. A beautiful hybrid twixt AFK Hunting and the Immortal build of Iceborne to fuel it. So, returning to Wilds then, it kind of just didn't happen. There wasn't really a way to make it work in any kind of satisfactory sense. Using support hunters felt a little bit like cheating because they just can kill things for you. You can essentially do the Pokemon Palico setup with them. We proved that with base Omega when we had support hunters kill it for us by just buffing them and kind of running around in circles watching them do what they do. Doesn't feel quite the same. But recently, then, I've taken to experimenting a little bit more, and what you're seeing is the result of it. And yes, it involves a lance. See, in order to kill a monster while AFK, or at least with minimal input in this case, I'm going to qualify as holding a button down and doing nothing else, so, you know, you could tape your controller in that position if you wanted and therefore make it truly AFK, you need 2 things. The first is the ability to never die no matter what happens. Well, the solution to that is my Immortal build and working it into this hybrid project. The second requirement, of course, is the ability to deal damage while you're doing the first thing. And while the Palico can help, as we've established, it's just not strong enough. But Lance then has its very unique ability that when you block an attack properly, you just automatically retaliate with a little pop of damage, as you can see here against this target dummy. So if this target dummy had health, if it was a monster, well, I could just literally sit here holding the block button down, or taping the block button down, and walk away, and eventually, because it can't literally do anything to me, it would die from this retaliatory damage. And therein lies a little bit of, if I then can properly engineer a situation where we just sort of exist near the monster, unkillably blocking it and retaliating for as long as it takes for it to die, then we can kind of make the auto AFK hunting machine of wilds. And that's exactly what I've done. And if you want a kind of idea how successful this has ended up being before we get into the testing and how I arrived at the set and method that I have, this is a 9-star, 5-star tempered new udra with 40,000 health. Now, of course, this basically has to be in the arena, otherwise the monster will eventually leave the zone and you'll have to follow, and that will slow it down, which will still work against weaker, less healthy monsters, but if you want to kill the big boys, the arena is the way to go with this, which doesn't actually matter because essentially everything you could want to farm could be in arena now. You can get a plethora of 9-5, etc. monsters here and use them for charms, etc., etc. Though all of this said, and I want to say this now as we get into this is not something that I recommend you do. It takes ages, and obviously it's not exactly the most engaging gameplay. This is purely a, can it be done? I need to know if it can be done, and I want to share the results with you because I find this kind of stuff a lot of fun to pull off, to tinker with, and to present, but I'm not about to be out here like, whoa, this is the revolution of Monster Hunter, but I am about to be like, hey, if you think it's kind of neat to be able to semi-AFK auto-kill even some of the hardest monsters in the game, well, I've got you covered. In any case then, the general game plan is thus. You essentially log on to the monster, you hold block, and then you just walk forward. And that's it. Hold block, walk forward, and then just let the rest happen. And over a long enough period of time, with the right set engineered to make it so that you never die, even if your block gets broken, which will inevitably happen even with the best setup, you will do enough damage through auto-retaliatory shield bashes to kill it. Or in the case of Arch-Tempered New Udra here, put it to skull and then capture it, as it wasn't going to die in the time limit. It got to skull in like 47 minutes, which I was really happy with because I really thought a 9-5 monster would be out of reach of this playstyle, let's call it. And the really funny thing here is, at like 30 minutes in or something, a normal Mizutsune spawned because I was spending so much time in the arena, and that Mizutsune passively died from a combination of New Udra damaging it and me accidentally damaging it with auto-guard shield bashes as it tried to do something useful, which I think is absolutely hilarious. And of course, when it got to skull, I realized I didn't actually have a trap on me, so I had to go back up to the item box, grab a trap, and then jump back down. In any case, yes, eventually the skull happened, and we got ourselves a capture of a 9-5 New Udra via only blocking and walking forward, which is just phenomenal. And to put in a kind of statistical way then, you can essentially expect to, depending on the moveset of the monster, do around 30 to 35,000 damage in 50 minutes using this method and build, which is enough to put most things in a capturable state. This is a Seregios after the New Udra, and he comes with a bonus Chatacabra. This one went even smoother, as Seregios is very, melee stabby, so he gets counter hit a lot. Though that said, he does spend a lot of time swooping, and he is fast enough that a retaliatory shield bash doesn't hit a lot of the time, so something that keeps right in your face and hits you a lot would go even faster. But he entered skull in a similar manner and was captured just the same after Chatacabra was kind of accidentally killed during it, as well as a random Lalabarina that spawned that didn't die but just felt the need to get involved with it all. In any case, the point is, this certainly works. The combination of the Lance's ability to automate damage by simply holding block and walking forward, and the Immortal Set's ability to make sure that you never die no matter what happens. Unless you get really unlucky with a second monster constantly hitting you in the back where you can't guard. I tried to do this with a 9-5 Legiocrius plus Gore at the same time in the arena, and That one didn't go as well, but hey, in 1v1, yeah, you're absolutely solid. So with that all said then, let's go over how this came to be. Oh, and if you are wondering if you can full AFK it, there is little wedges that you can get yourself locked in the arena here, and then you just hold block like this, and you're good to go. But this needs the monster to keep coming to you to do damage, as opposed to you slowly always walking towards them to increase frequency of retaliation and to make sure you're always facing the monster. So you can only really do the fully just sit in the corner of the arena technique against weaker stuff. So it is what it is there. So step one then to this little conundrum is we want to make the auto retaliation do as much damage as possible. Obviously, the more damage we can make it do while still retaining enough sturdiness to be able to endlessly do it is going to reduce hunt time or increase our maximum damage potential and thereby increase the monsters that we can hunt during this. So currently I am simply holding a artian with max attack, and that then will do a nice little bit. So when it comes to the shield mash, it's affected by a couple things. Your roar, of course, goes into it, though it scales very, very poorly, very low motion value, and it can actually crit, so therefore affinity does matter, and by extension your boost, etc. Then after that, well, it doesn't actually use the element or status of your weapon. This is technically a blast lance, but you will never proc a blast proc with just the shield, which is a shame. And also then that means that you can't proc skills. So for example, if this was the Zoshia lance, White Flame Torrent would never happen, which is a shame, because if it did, that would make it the best lance for the job, as those extra pops of damage would be invaluable. So bottom line then, all we really have to do is achieve the highest effective roar possible while building into the immortal backbone, which makes things simple but a little bit anticlimactic. It would be a lot better if we could incorporate status element skills from this shield bash, but hey, it is what it is. So that's how damage kind of works out here. But survivability then. You may be thinking, okay, but you're blocking with a lance. Presumably you're going to use guard, you'll be guarding up on monsters that need it, you're essentially just not taking chip damage, you're losing a tiny bit of stamina. What do you even need to be immortal for? Well, a couple reasons. A lot of monsters do have attacks that will chip you a little bit, but more importantly, eventually, as you can see is slowly happening because you don't regain stamina while blocking, and if there is some sort of secret art to regaining stamina while blocking, and I don't know about it, then, oh no. In any case, you will eventually run out of stamina, which means you will eventually take a hit. And when you take that hit, you need it to not be devastating. You also need to make sure that by the time you take the next hit from running out of stamina, you are back to a really decent amount of health. Ergo, some Zoshia healing, some recovery speed, etc, etc. So we essentially need to find out the perfect blend, and you can see it happening in the footage. It's all super sped up, so you can see my stamina slowly being eaten, then me being hit, then my health regenerating back to full, or nearly full, or high enough, before my stamina next runs out in a cycle. That is an important part of this, otherwise you wouldn't survive, no matter how effective your guarding was. So essentially then the goal is to create a set that means you will never die from broken attacks while dealing as much damage with the bash as possible. And of course that is exactly what I have done. So obviously the first stage to this is choosing the lance that we're going to use. Now the two main options are either Artian or our Guardian Doshagama. Now, sharpness does affect the damage the shield bash does, even though it doesn't actually take any sharpness. So this makes Guardian Dashagama quite attractive for that base 250 raw, though the minus affinity does kind of suck, and the offensive guard doesn't help us here because we're just permanently holding block, and therefore the slots are quite, well, a problem. We have to put 3 handicraft in to reach white for that boost, which leaves just enough space for guard 3, pretend this is a guard 3 deco, I don't have 2 of them for some reason, and then you're kind of done, which is fine until you want to use this against a monster that needs guard up, and then what do? Take a big damage hit from losing your handicraft. So although this is close, and this is what I would recommend you use if you just want to try this for the memes, and you don't want to have a perfect Lartian Ants to do this, Lartian Ants, and then just use Dashagama. But the technical best weapon for this, overall, because things like critical boost do matter, decoration space matters, is a perfect Artian Lance that is just full attack everywhere. The element or status doesn't matter, as we discussed. You want as standard then your, well, guard 3 in it, you want critical boost 3, and then attack 3. Again, I somehow still don't have a single attack 3 decoration, so pretend this is level 3. Against a monster that needs guard up, you would replace the critical boost and put that in there. So yeah, that's the weapon that came out on top from all of me testing. This then is the armor set we use to pull this off. A triple arch tempered gamma for that Lord Soul raw boost, and then 2 sets of shear for the constant trickle healing, which as you've seen is enough to keep everything comfortably running. You can go full immortal with this, but it's a little bit overkill against most monsters I find, and don't worry, you don't need a ridiculous god talisman or anything. This works just as well with a crafted one, which I will show you too, but this is ideal if you happen to have something similar that can give you ranks of Divine Blessing. The defense boost doesn't actually matter that much, it's just a little bit of a bonus here. The main 3 that we're going to end up wanting is Divine Blessing for those occasional hits through shield being broken when stamina is low, and recovery up and recovery speed. In any case, this is a really nice layout, gives us a hefty amount of raw defense because they're all rare 8 pieces, and let's get it decorated up. It results then in this. So we have full agitator, full latent power, and this is really nice. Latent will be on more than not throughout the hunt thanks to the 2-set Ray Dow, and this is just a nice flat 50% affinity, as well as the stamina management for the blocks. This will give us a really nice output boost and just comfort boost. Agitator, some more affinity and some more raw. We will go through a lot of enrages, of course. It's a good way to get some power, and then just one leftover bit of Wex just to give us a little bit of affinity. We can't use maximum might because we spend most of our time not at full stamina, and there isn't really a whole lot of just raw increasing skills that we can pile on while still maintaining the immortal side of things. This is kind of the best we can do. Resentment and peak performance aren't exactly reliable here, so we end up like this, which is another reason getting the 3-set Lord Soul is really good for that little boost of raw. Now, I should say, all of the offensive skills, the base raw of the weapon, essentially is worth like an extra 30 damage per bash to the training dummy, which isn't a huge amount, but when that's like 50 to 80, yeah, it does add up over the course of the hunt and make these things possible. So we decorate it up in order to get to that full Divine Blessing, full recovery up, full recovery speed, and everything else as mentioned. We put in a random growth, as self-improvement does actually matter here, because we'll be in the hunt long enough against hard stuff that the defense and raw increase will do something, and then we just put 1 constitution in the final free 1 slot, as it will help the blocking stamina. Now, these 2 1 slots here are for anything you need them to be. So if you're going against Seregios, use them both on bleed resistance, and then swap a medicine for the 3rd bleed resistance. If you're going against something that's going to keep putting fire blight on you, then put some fire resist in here. So on and so forth, right? Use these 2 slots plus 1 medicine if you need to counter the monster's specific thing that you plan on using this against. If for some reason you plan on using this, despite me saying, don't actually use this, just enjoy that it's possible from this video. In any case, this is how it works out. and it's really quite solid. If you're wanting to know, the EFR is around 430, so about 15% less than a meta set, which is not bad at all considering, you know, the gimmick that we're pulling off here. Honestly, it feels even silly to be doing an EFR calc on this thing, but hey, there you go. In any case, then, yeah, this is where we end up if you want the ideal way to pull this off. The extra bit of defense to survive any attack that does get through the shield, the combo of recovery speed, recovery up, and Zoshia 2 set to make sure you're topped off before you next take an attack, and then as much damage as we can get past that. And for a non-RNG talisman version, it's actually quite simple. You can either use 3 Divine Blessing, 3 recovery up, or indeed 3 latent power and achieve the same raw skill list. You'll just do a little bit less damage like so, and have less flexibility with the counter decorations for the specific monster, but hey, certainly still workable. Oh, and there's a little bit of a Palico thing, because your Palico will obviously be there and he will be helping. Weapon-wise, you want to choose the weapon with the highest raw that has the element the monster you're going after is weakest to, and then you'll get the most damage out of your Palico. You also want to set it up like this to get the damage you can out of it. Wrath from Above is optional. It does make him go AFK a lot, but technically it does damage, but it's still a tiny amount of damage. Let Her Rip is also, again, optional, though you can certainly have it on, but this setup I found was ideal, and that's something you can incorporate if you really want your Palico to contribute as much as it can. I hope then you found this at the very least amusing, interesting, a little bit of, you can do that. How curious. But other than that, yeah, this was just a lot of fun for me to put together to see if it was actually achievable. And hey, being able to semi-AFK or fully AFK if you care about taping a couple buttons down on your controller as some of the hardest monsters in the game in the arena is definitely neat. For now then, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.